Welcome everyone to the last panel before lunch. I'm Eleni Marouli. I'm the head of market developments at Ofcom, and I look after all of our TV and radio industry data collection and analysis. This is the last panel before lunch. We promised to make it interesting. We promised to make it appetite-inducing, which reminds me I need to grab the clicker. When we will be talking about expanding digital TV reach and inventory, what its value is, what developments have happened over the last few years in both audience and technology, and also what the future promise of digital TV advertising is. But as it is right before lunch and we want to keep it food themed, my first question to the panelists, and I should introduce them. We have Annie Shearer from Essence Mediacom, we have Ed Wale from LG Ads, Evan Adlman from AMC Networks, Maxime Andre from MC's Publicité, and Chris Kleinschmidt from Xperi. And so what I'd like to ask you is, where are we with digital advertising reach and inventory? What kind of meal is it? Is it an appetizer or dessert that goes on the side of your main meal? Is it that really indulgent snack that really hits that craving when you get it and it's for a very specific purpose? Or is it your kind of main meal of the day that everything centers around? Or maybe something else? Annie, let's start with you.
Right, okay, so I think that looking at it as a sushi restaurant, right? You're going into a sushi restaurant and your big roll of sushi that you choose is your linear TV. It still delivers your broad reach at scale. However, alongside that, you need your appetizers to feel full. So you've also got your gyozas, your edamames, your sashimi, whatever it is. And basically that's kind of all your broadcast VOD, your SVOD, your CTV players, all of the other stuff that comes under like digital video. So without that, you don't have a full kind of ecosystem of being able to reach the right people. So it's making sure that, I would say that it's an appetizer, but it also at the same time complements each other.
Okay, so we know a lot about, how you eat your sushi, which is brilliant.
I feel like this question would be perfect for my good friend, Rhys McLaughlin of ITV, who speaks almost exclusively in food analogies. I think I'm going to go with a 5-star all-you-can-eat buffet to describe TV ecosystem. 5-star because we're talking about big screen environments, right? Which, if you kind of compare that to the wider ecosystem, it's one of the most impactful kind of screens available. Buffet style because you enjoy it with lots of other people, as you do obviously TV. And I think in this new world that we find ourselves in, there's such a variety coming to the big screen, depending on whether it's linear or streaming or other forms of social video, that now is what I would say encompasses the definition of TV. So that's what I'm going for.
Wow, all you can eat buffet, amazing. Big promise there from Ed. Evan, what about you?
I'm going to say it's the main meal. It's the main. Ooh, that's loud. It's the main meal. I'd say the digital for us in the States is the protein on the plate. So whatever protein is your fancy, but really the sides is kind of fragmented. So you can go potato, you can go vegetable, you can go with different ways. And
that linear TV is the potatoes.
Well, not the linear TV, but I would say the types of platforms that you choose to use and the different ways that you can measure the digital inventory, but it is absolutely the main meal of our dinner. It's everything that we talk about every single day, and I think it's not going to slow down.
Brilliant, Maxime.
So I'm the French guy on this table. So I would say it's not a fancy La Durée macaron that you will eat in 3 seconds. It's the main meal. It's the Sunday roast, to speak to Britons. It's the turkey for Thanksgiving. So it's the main meal.
Nobody likes.
Yeah. And I think it's definitely the key part of the meal. And the good news is that you can also have it in slice today thanks to digital. So you don't need to buy the whole turkey. You can also take a part of it. So it's quite a good metaphor, I hope.
I quite like that, very good. And Chris, top all of those answers if you can.
So I would say something different personally. As an American living in London for the last number of years, I'd say it's kind of like the aperitivo. Like, I think we're all getting drunk off of an acronym of champagne, or like a bunch of acronyms that are kind of flying out there. It's an incredibly fragmented space, as we all know. I think we're biased. Like, we want to say it's the main meal. In Europe, I don't think it is at all. Quite frankly, I think it's a complement to linear TV. So to me, that's how I view this, and I'd look at the buyers at the end of the day. So I think it's definitely something that's gaining a lot more traction. I'd say it's a complement to linear TV, which I would then say it's going to be your appetizer, your aperitivo, and a dessert. But at the end of the day, it's not the main meal, particularly in European markets. US, I think, is slightly different, but I think we're still a couple years away from that here.
Brilliant. If you're not feeling hungry yet, you will soon. I will continue with the food analogies throughout. So let's talk a little bit what's happened over the last 12 to 24 months. Maybe, Maxime, you can tell us at MCs what you guys have been doing and how you've sort of expanded your digital TV reach and inventory.
Well, we will talk about digital today. So digital TV. Regarding M6, we launched our new platform, M6 Plus, in last May. And if you look at audiences, it's a great success. If you compare, for instance, the average monthly audience in 2023 and in 2024, we increased our audience by 52%. So the traction is huge. And it's a big move for us because we come from linear TV, and it's vital, to turn our audience into digital. And why? Because we follow the audiences. If you look at our audience consumption, some shows are consumed 50% on the digital and 50% in linear. So we need to bring this experience on all our programs, and we need also to invest on exclusive content to attract new users, to attract like TV viewers, to attract younger audiences. So they come to us not through linear TV, but through digital. So far it's a success. We see the audience growing. We have a plan which is very ambitious. By 2008, we want to double the video consumption and triple the video monetization. We are on the good path. Maybe it will we will reach it sooner than expected. So we pursue our strategy, and so far it's working.
Great. So audience first, monetization second, but target.
It's coming together. If you don't have the audience, you don't have the monetization. And of course, maybe we'll talk about it later, how we will triple the monetization by bringing new solutions, new targeting tools, new measurements, so we can increase the value and increase the revenue.
Brilliant. And Ed, at LG, what have you guys done in the last 12 to 24 months?
Well, I think, if we're looking at the kind of broader market, we're on a universal trend, I think, towards streaming. I'm lucky enough to be in an international role, and every market I visit is, more or less saying the same thing, albeit it's moving at kind of different speeds. I think, within streaming as well, we see kind of shifts as well within the last sort of 24 months. So more uptake of advertising video on demand. Obviously, there's been the introduction of ad tiers by SVODs. I think that's been a huge driver of additional reach in streaming, and we have our own service as well, right? LG Channels is a fast channel service and AVOD service, which we've been investing quite a bit in, and seeing the fruits of that as well, because obviously good content does attract eyeballs at the end of the day. So it's it's a steady march, I think, towards establishing streaming as the main course.
And you're quite new to the UK, Chris, from an Xperi perspective. Maybe you can share with us sort of both the US and UK perspective for Xperi.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would actually say something very similar to what Ed just mentioned. I think FAST has been one of the biggest evolutions for CTV, particularly over the last 2 years. It's definitely been around before that, but I think it's really kind of taken off. And I think I've seen independent research that says that FAST typically makes up about 5% of TV viewing time. So counting linear, streaming, everything kind of as one. That's a huge stat. So I think that's actually really kind of important to kind of piece together into a media plan. I don't necessarily think they're getting 5% of the budgets. So I think FAST is one big element, but it actually goes back to what Max was saying too about, I think, linear channels digitizing linear TV content. In the UK, I actually think a really good example of that is Freely. I think that's gonna be something that's gonna be really interesting to see how this starts to play out over the next year or two, because that will be a digital streamed linear viewing experience. That's going to open up a whole host, opportunity of targeting, measurement, things that just weren't traditionally available in linear TV. So I think that's going to be kind of the main driver, what's going to drive a lot more of this over the next 12 to 24 months. But I think the last 24 months, again, has been the evolution of these SVOD apps, rolling out ad tiers and FAST. I think those are the two main drivers for sure.
Evan, you're nodding a lot. You've launched quite a few ad-supported outlets, streaming outlets. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
We view, we're it's interesting how you say that like FAST should have more of the linear type original programming. When we set out on this path about 5 years ago, everything was about putting the viewer first. And we were already in a moment where the viewership opportunities were fragmented, right? They were just beginning to become as fragmented as they are now, but also an opportunity for us to say, we want our viewers to be able to sort of watch and stream our content wherever they are, whenever they are, and whenever they want. And we've just keep down the road with that strategy, which led us into FAST. So we have 18 FAST channels that live across 11 platforms. And we've gone from back of the closet content when we first started to now sometimes recent seasons, or at least the first episode of a new season we put across those channels. We've seen massive growth in our viewership and a big shift from sort of the advertiser looking at us and saying, you know, we only want to buy on linear, and we look at them and say, well, actually, only 50% of the people that are watching our content are on that particular platform, right? You get 56% more viewership when you extend your reach and your buy outside of linear. And you know, some of those channels that we distribute could be some of the best, you know, types of our brand, because it's 100% original content on those channels. And I see the LG FAST channels and the different platforms maturing in the US, right? I don't think it's necessarily just about big reach. I think there's an opportunity for us to continue to grow partnerships with those platforms where we create a true linear premium experience for the viewer, while controlling, you know, the message that comes through. And we're seeing explosive growth on our side with that, along with our streaming apps, AMC Plus. I find a little bit of humor in the US with where we are now, because we talk about this as an industry in such a unique way, and we talk about certain things so specifically, whether it's measurement or distribution or ad delivery, et cetera. And truthfully, the viewer doesn't care. Like, they don't watch TV the way that we actually talk about it. Sometimes we don't buy TV the way that they're actually watching it. So I think for you know, a viewer, they're not like, oh, am I going to go on FAST? Am I going to go on AVOD? Am I going to go on my streaming? You know, they're just trying to sit down and find a show, and when they find it, you know, whether it's a show that's 5 years old or in season, that's a premiere to them, and that's the first time they're seeing it, and that's really all that should matter to a brand that wants to connect with that viewer.
So as the voice of the brand, so can you tell us maybe a little bit how you use digital TV reach in your video planning?
So I would say that it's a really important thing to us, right? You've obviously, as I said, linear TV is almost like your bread and butter when you're looking at your video reach. There's no denying it. It delivers broad reach at scale. So you start with that. And then I think that, like you were saying, content is really important. So if you're up against, you know, looking at digital TV versus linear TV, you need to make sure that you've also got the content there. So the likes of the broadcasters, they've been releasing, you know, full seasons on their players rather than making sure that they're on linear TV to kind of progress that reach over to that side. So I think that for us, it's really important that we're planning things holistically, that we're looking at it as an overall picture, and bringing the digital TV side of things into the mix is what we need now to make sure that we're not losing those viewers, especially around the younger audiences as well. So we see younger audiences declining on linear TV, which means that we need to make sure that we're capturing them in other places. And that's where the digital TV landscape is amazing at doing so.
Brilliant. Well, moving on from sort of thinking about the past to talking about the future, you know, Larry Page very famously quoted Amara's Law on a lot of his Google calls when he was CEO, and that we tend to overestimate the effect of technology in the short run and underestimate it in the long run. So with that in mind, where are we overestimating the digital TV opportunity, and where are we underestimating it? And Ed, I'm going to look at you first.
It's a big question, Eleni. I mean, from our perspective, I think one thing that, as a future opportunity that we're trying to bring to the market is the smart TV home screen. You know, we've talked about the kind of shift towards streaming. That's happening. Another shift that we see is kind of less and less peripheral devices being plugged into the TV, and more viewing happening via streaming and natively on that device. And so that's just creating a huge scale opportunity to reach kind of viewers right when they turn on their TV, before they potentially dive into ad-free environments as well. You know, the UI experience is a full screen experience, so it's not a rail at the bottom, it's a kind of the whole real estate of the TV, and the advertising format takes up about 50% of that. So it's a really impactful, you know, opportunity, supports video interactivity, right? Which is something, again, that's not really been the purview of big screen advertising, is creating a canvas, a surface that people can interact with and launch additional content, or, you know, have different sort of landing pages, et cetera, et cetera. So that's something where we've seen a huge amount of traction. Originally, it was kind of the purview of, you know, what we call media and entertainment advertisers, right? Content, promotions, acquiring audiences, et cetera. But more and more brands outside of just the media and entertainment vertical are leveraging that space now, because it is, as I said, you know, it can be a very good complement to linear TV, right, when coupled with the right data set. It can be executed as a 100% share of voice environment, right, which again, as ad loads increase within TV, you know, it's kind of hard to stand out. So those are sort of, I guess, some of the products that we're trying to bring to market to drive what I describe as the future of TV.
Yeah. Maxime, you're nodding. Are we close to streaming becoming the anchor of most TV campaigns?
In the future, maybe, but today linear TV is still very strong. But we need to embrace this transformation. I mean, in our negotiation with advertisers and agency, of course, we push digital to be in the mix, because, as I said previously, digital is part of our consumption. So you can't have silos. It's not possible anymore. So that digital will grow, and we need to promote this new consumption through our ad products, for instance, convergent ad products. So I totally agree with what was said previously. I mean, the future for us is not about technology, it's about content. Content is our ADN. We are in a world where content is everywhere. So as a broadcasters, if we want to survive in these environments, we need to have the best content. And people will come to us for our content, not for our platform, not for our targeting solutions, just for our content. So it's complicated, because if you only have the content, you end up on YouTube.
Yeah.
So we need to have the content, we need to have the technology, I mean the platforms, the streaming technology, you need to have the ad technology, you need to have the distribution contracts with everybody. So it's a ambitious strategy, but I mean, what is core to this strategy is the content. And to give you an example, our most successful show is L'amour est dans le pré, is 19 years old today, and it's setting new high records in terms of ratings. So we need to keep on investing in those shows, and I mean, it will secure our future, in my opinion.
But so on that though, Max, like I think this is interesting. So you said something that content is king. Everybody knows this, right? Like this is something that's been talked about for decades, generations really. But measurement is the key piece to that. Like anybody who has good content, it's going to attract eyeballs. But if you can't effectively measure it, it's not valuable. I think that's the issue with CTV. And I say this, you know, I'd be remiss if I didn't say so. So Xperi is rolling out the TiVo operating system, which is an independent smart TV operating system in Europe. This is something where I also find interesting, because you talk about this idea of a walled garden. You know, and you talk about the fact that like CTV is creating this fragmented space. We've now got different apps, different operating systems, and everybody measures things slightly different. And I would go back and I'd say we all know the challenge in CTV is the lack of standardized measurement. I honestly don't think that's going to get solved. I just don't see that as something that's going to get picked up and cleared up in any time in the near future, in the same way that Nielsen, Kantar, Barb, whoever, in the same way that that's historically existed in linear. I just don't ever see that being the true buying source for digital TV, and I think that's what's going to be one of the challenges, quite frankly, but also lots of opportunities. It's not necessarily a negative comment. I think it creates opportunities, but it just requires more education. And I think it's going to go back to content. You need to have that, and you need to have an ecosystem that allows for that tracking in a systematic way where the industry agrees to it. And I haven't seen that, and I think that's the biggest gap that we see short term. and even relatively midterm in CTV.
So Annie, how do you do that for your clients?
I mean, measurement is huge for us from an agency standpoint. So we, like you say, we don't have a solution yet. There's Origin out there in the UK, there's C-Flight out there in the UK, but we don't have one single source of measurement, and that's what we need. So we've kind of, I've got the hope by 2030, we might have something in place. I know it's a long way away, but being optimistic about it, that's probably how far down the line we're looking, to have kind of everyone on board, almost like you've got Barb for linear TV, something along those lines, but you've got everyone that sells digital TV inventory on board with a specific measurement solution. So, you've got third-party measurement solutions that we can use as well, but they don't necessarily have everyone on board. So it's, we've kind of, as an agency, we're trying to work through and create our own ways to be able to measure our video inventory, just to make sure that we can, give clients what they need in terms of a holistic view. But there are challenges around that as well. But I think that, like you say, measurement is really, really important in the mix. And I think also, if we're talking about then when digital TV is going to become the anchor of TV campaigns, I also think it comes down to market dynamics and also consumer behavior as well. So, live sport at the moment, that's something that is mainly viewed on linear TV. So you've got Amazon and Discovery Plus and things that are starting to take on some of the rights for live sports. But until we see things like that change, I think that linear TV will still be the anchor when it comes to big sporting events, even appointment to view programming a lot of the time. But the younger audiences are probably going to be where we see the dial moving and the share from linear TV to digital TV moving further as we go along the years.
Evan, you want to come in?
I think I'm kind of excited that I got to go last answering this question. I think there's a few things. So one, I think we're underestimating the value of content, at least from the States. And I think we're overestimating what scale means. And being, somebody that grew up in digital, so this is my first stint at a TV company, the same thing happened in .com, right? We got to this point where there was so much scale, and we would talk to brands and advertisers and say, it doesn't matter what site they're on, you could retarget your audiences anywhere, slice up the turkey as many tiny pieces as you wanted, and the pendulum swung all the way to that. And then eventually it comes back in the middle. And for us, I think measurement is a topic that we are just so focused on, and it don't even know if it makes sense in our region anymore, because is it measurement or is it reporting, right? You're okay getting delivery of a campaign on a digital platform from a credited ad server that says your ad was delivered, here's where it ran, here's how long it was viewed, and so on and so on and so on. And we're still battling this window of time with the C3 in the States, where, like I said earlier, 56% of our viewership actually happens after day 3. So when we think about this at AMC Networks, for us, it's as important to keep producing incredible shows and supporting and growing the franchises we have. If we look back 15 years ago, when linear was one of the only places you would go to watch content, we had 5 different distributors that got our content out to 75% of the audience in the US. You fast forward to today, we work with over 30 distributors that get the same show out. So we need the community to realize that we're doing the same thing we were. We're actually true to our DNA. It's just that they're watching it in different places. And yes, the younger demo is not on linear in the US like it used to be. So a lot of times when you look at where we distribute, it's almost demo-based. Like you have one demo on this platform, you have another demo on this platform. But at the end of the day, I think a brand wants to know that they can align their message to a viewer that's leaned in, a loyal fan, right? Somebody that actually searched for a show, sat down, and pressed play. And to your point, one of the top 3, the number 3 streamed franchise on AMC Plus today is still Mad Men, right? So is a premiere really something that is live in the moment, or is it when somebody actually sat down, searched, and watched it for the first time?
So yeah, let's talk about audiences kind of a little bit more. I think we've touched on fragmentation. We've heard some numbers here, and particularly the younger demographics. I think in our Ofcom Media Nations report this year, we found that for the first time, 16 to 24s, less than half of them are turning on and watching linear broadcasting every week. So there is kind of, you know, a desire or a need to find those guys somewhere else on the TV set, ideally, because we know that is a lean-back experience. It tends to be a premium experience. How are you doing this, MCs, Maxime, and how are you thinking about re-aggregating your audiences across the different channels?
You mean on the audience perspective?
From an audience perspective, yeah.
Well, in France, we are lucky because we have Médiamétrie, which is the trusted media measurer. And we found an agreement to launch a cross-video measurement early 2025. And we'll have all the broadcasters, plus YouTube, plus Amazon, plus Netflix around the table, and to agree the same measurement methodology. So it's going to be a big step for the industry, big step for us. It's funny because we don't succeed in building a government, but we succeed in building a cross-video measurement. So we are better at things on business, maybe. But so this will be a big step forward for us. And for us, it's very important, not only because it will compare Apple to Apple and not Apple to Orange, but it's important because some of our competitors have a global audience, and within this global audience, you have some advertising audience, I mean monetized audience. So it's important to have a comparison with the right audience. For instance, Netflix, all is not monetizable, you know, only a part of Netflix. So we want to be compared to what is comparable, and this new cross-media measurement will enable this. So it will be a big move for the French market, and we hope to benefit from it because today our audience is already measured and it's quite strong. So that's.
Ed, what is the potential to find underexposed viewers on you know?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a huge component to what we bring to the market. There's a couple of variants here. So, you know, broadcasters launching streaming services want to be able to, you know, acquire new audiences. So a data set that helps you understand, you know, where is my app installed, where is my app not installed, where have I had viewers that have come in but have lapsed over a certain period of time. You know, which households are lovers of you know, linear content, maybe I can convert them. So we work as a kind of discoverability partner with content owners to acquire audiences. And, you know, the other piece is ACR and sort of understanding at the device level, at the household level, you know, where did that linear TV ad actually land? You know, which household was exposed, which was not exposed. And we put that together and segment that and offer it to brands in order for them to be able to either, you know, re-message or go ahead and drive or find pockets of incrementality. So I think while we're in this transitional phase, data sets like this will have a lot of value.
So is that for kind of the big brand budgets, or is this lower funnel marketing? I don't know.
See, I think that with the ACR side of things and with the kind of more granular audiences that we can build, it gives opportunity for brands that haven't been on linear TV before, that don't have the budgets to run a national campaign. They can then all of a sudden be on the big screen, you know? So I think that type of audience, when we're talking about segmenting them, when we're talking about using different data partners, it's a really good opportunity for new to TV brands because it's a TV-like environment and they're basically reaching their exact audience by looking at doing like kind of the granular audiences that we're planning.
We've pulled, done a lot of work over the last 5 years to pull all of our distribution into a system that allows an advertiser to target an audience regardless of where they're viewing. So if it's a linear viewer, we work with our distribution partners to, you know, in a privacy compliant way in the US, which I know is different than over here in this region, to be able to know, you know, who's watching what they're watching and be able to target that. Because prior, you know, there was national advertisers would be buying just based on an age and demo on linear, and there was really no specific way to say, oh, okay, here's how many people are gonna be there. So I feel that it's a great opportunity for national advertisers to take advantage of these addressable capabilities to give up the waste that they're getting when they're buying just a specific age and demo across traditional linear, and we offer that across linear and digital, and then it comes down to how do you measure it and report it. But I think it's almost like addressable targeting solves for the fragmentation that we're all dealing with, because you no longer have to worry about what platform or what channel or what show is going to bring me the most. You can actually string all of those together through a segment that you'll build and target across.
Assuming we can figure out measurement, and some are more optimistic than others. I'd like to sort of end with some practical questions or practical advice for the audience. So if we're eating our sushi, our all-you-can-eat buffet, remind me what
the main meal.
Your main meal, a sliced turkey from a Frenchman, and an aperitivo. So what recipe do we need to follow sort of to get the most out of our dish? So if you can give kind of one action for a broadcaster or content owner and one action for an advertiser, what would it be in terms of digital reach and inventory?
Broadcasters, I would say, get more involved with your appetizers. Make sure that you're collaborating as much as possible to look at the bigger picture when it comes to measurement and things like that. I know they're already doing that, but just that's kind of the one side that I'd say. And sorry, what was the other one?
For the advertiser, what should they be doing?
For the advertiser, I think it's looking at the bigger picture when it comes to your holistic video planning strategy, making sure that you're taking into account your audiences that you're planning and buying and things like that. Because if you're not looking at the full picture, then you're not taking into account everything that's out there within the video world.
Ed, what are your...
I just don't think I can extend my buffet analogy to this question. But I do think that, for content owners, there's, on the topic of discoverability, just being on the device is not enough. There's so much content coming out. Total TV viewing, right, as reported in Media Nations, is increasing because there's so much choice. Right. So, it's about being on device, being integrated with your metadata to surface your content in recommendations, and then, having perhaps some more sophisticated paid strategies. So that would be my thought for content owners trying to tackle the streaming ecosystem. I think for brands, experiment, right? Like I think if we wait for the perfect measurement solution, we'll be waiting for a really long time, right?
2030.
So 2030, we heard it here today. Yeah. So perfection, enemy of progress.
Brilliant. Evan?
I'd say for the content owners, just continue to focus on formatting your content to be able to be distributed to the different platforms that are popping up and those partnerships. And for the advertiser, I would take anything that we just said on here and I turn it into a smoothie. Put it in a blender.
Like that.
Put a smoothie this way.
I'm not having sushi.
Well, maybe not sushi, but you get the analogy. Like it's not separate. Just it's one. Think about it as one. We're past experimenting. We're past thinking that we have to try this to try that. Like people watch television nowhere near how we talk about it. They just watch TV.
I mean, for a broadcaster, I would say we need simplicity and collaboration. Because alone, it's going to be very complicated. So we need to simplify the way you buy your slice of turkey. You need to collaborate on targeting you can offer. If you have a deal in retail media, we all need to have the same segments to simplify the buying for advertisers. So collaboration and simplification.
Brilliant. And Chris?
Yeah, I'd say real quickly from an advertiser's perspective, I will take this to the grave. Simplify it, make it proportionate. Right? Look at how people are spending time on a TV and distribute TV dollars across those different platforms. It should be as simple as that. I know it's not going to be. So I think that is one way to look at it from a budget perspective. From the actual content owner side, I think a lot of that's also more transparency. More content signals, especially if this is digitized. A lot of it's going to be transacted programmatically. A lot more information needs to be shared in the bid request. There needs to be much more openness around what that looks like for brands to actually appropriately measure or track that audience. And I think until those two things happen, it's just going to be the same conversation until 2030.
Brilliant.
See you next year.
Yeah, exactly.
Please join me in thanking our panelists.